Welcome back. Trump halts major housing bill signing in surprise move, ties decision to election legislation. A stunning last-minute decision from President Donald Trump has sent shockwaves through Washington and left lawmakers from both parties scrambling for answers. Just hours before a highly anticipated signing ceremony, Trump abruptly canceled plans to sign what many lawmakers are calling the most significant housing affordability legislation in decades. The unexpected move has reignited political tensions and raised questions about the future of a bill designed to help millions of Americans struggling with rising housing costs. So why did the president suddenly hit the brakes? According to Trump, the answer has nothing to do with housing itself. Instead, he says he will not sign the legislation until Congress advances another priority, the Save America Act, an election-related measure that he has described as a national emergency. The announcement came through a social media statement that immediately captured national attention. In that message, Trump declared that the housing bill signing ceremony was canceled until lawmakers make progress on the election legislation. The decision surprised many observers because the housing bill had already passed both the House and Senate with overwhelming bipartisan support. The legislation, known as the 21st Century Road to Housing Act, includes dozens of provisions aimed at increasing housing supply, reducing costs, and making homeownership more accessible. Among its major initiatives are programs to convert vacant commercial buildings into affordable housing, increased support for factory-built homes, expanded housing opportunities for veterans, and limits on institutional investors purchasing certain single-family homes. Supporters argue that the bill directly addresses one of the nation's most pressing concerns, housing affordability. For many families, rising home prices and rental costs have made homeownership feel increasingly out of reach. That's why lawmakers from both parties celebrated the bill's passage as a rare bipartisan achievement in an era often defined by political gridlock. Yet despite previously expressing support for the legislation, Trump now appears determined to use it as leverage in a broader political battle. Speaking to reporters, the president emphasized his focus on interest rates and election policy rather than housing legislation. He argued that lower interest rates would have a greater impact on housing affordability than the bill itself. House Speaker Mike Johnson later confirmed that Trump intends to use part of the constitutional review period before deciding whether to sign the measure. Under federal law, a president generally has 10 days, excluding Sundays, to sign or veto legislation after it reaches the White House. Meanwhile, reactions across Washington have been swift and deeply divided. Republican leaders praised the housing bill and expressed hope that Trump would eventually sign it into law. Senate Majority Leader John Thune described it as a strong piece of legislation and emphasized its importance in addressing affordability challenges. Others appeared puzzled by the sudden reversal. Several Republican lawmakers noted that Trump had previously endorsed the measure and questioned why it had become entangled with the separate election bill debate. Democrats responded even more forcefully. Senate Minority Leader Chuck Schumer accused the president of abandoning one of the few bipartisan accomplishments Congress had delivered this year, arguing that millions of Americans could benefit from the legislation. Outside Washington, public reaction has been equally intense. Supporters of Trump argue that election integrity remains a critical issue and understand his desire to prioritize the Save America Act. Critics counter that housing affordability affects millions of families right now and should not become a bargaining chip in unrelated political negotiations. As the debate continues, the future of the housing bill remains uncertain. Will the president ultimately sign the legislation? Will Congress make progress on the election measure he is demanding? Or could one of the most ambitious housing reform efforts in decades become another casualty of political conflict? For now, Americans are left watching closely as a major bipartisan victory hangs in the balance. And with housing costs remaining a top concern nationwide, the outcome of this standoff could have lasting consequences for families, homeowners, renters, and the political landscape heading into the next election cycle. One thing is certain, this story